We'll call to order this public hearing. We'll be hearing the appeal from Gordon Eaton regarding the Planning and Zoning Commission approval of Crow Creek Phase 5 LLC for a PUD. In attendance on the county level are two commissioners, Commissioner Walker and Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Christensen is out of town and will not be attending. From the Planning and Zoning, we have our Director, Austin Black. We have his Administrative Assistant, Wenda Rondo, and the Assistant Supervisor, Michelle Hagan. We also have in the meeting Kayla Lawrence, who's the Commissioner's Administrative Assistant. I'll first read the notification. Notice is hereby given that the following hearing will be held. We do have someone that is joining online. Wait just a minute. Okay, it appears that we do have someone online, so I'll begin again with the reading of the public notice for the hearing. Notice is hereby given that the following hearing will be held in the Bongo County Courthouse, 605 North Capitol, Idaho Falls, Idaho. I want to note for the records that the meeting, due to unforeseen circumstances, was moved to this location, which is 497 North Capitol Avenue. We have notified the security in the courthouse that anybody coming for this meeting is to be sent over to this location. So we've made every effort possible to be sure that anybody who wishes to attend this meeting is able to, either in person or by Zoom. This is being held on July 20th, 2023 at 2 p.m. by the Bongo County Commissioners for the purpose of a public hearing in relation to the application of Gordon Egan for an appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision regarding the approval for Crow Creek Phase 5 LLC of planned unit development. The notice then gives the general location. It also gives a legal description and all the information necessary how to attend in person or online. And this was published on July 5th, 2023. We have received all of the information that was provided at the May 24th Planning and Zoning meeting. I'm in a packet. The commissioners have reviewed that. Without exception, that will be part of the record for this meeting, and any decisions that are made here will also be based off of all the information that was given at that meeting. It included all the testimonies, so anything that was said there does not have to be repeated. We already have that information. This is an appeal hearing, so it's specifically to deal with the reasons for appeal that were on the application by Mr. Egan. These were just roughly accuracy of the ITV traffic assessment. Number two, a lack of clarity on the road and bridge comments. There was a question about what year those comments were given. And then there was also a need for some assurance, for some information regarding access to irrigation water. So all the testimony in this meeting should focus on those 3 points of appeal. We will not be hearing any information not related to those three or considering that. We'll go ahead and begin with a presentation from our Planning and Zoning regarding the application of appeal. We'll be doing that.
I'm doing that, yeah. So I'm just going to briefly give you a general location here. Not going to get too much in the weeds, but if you want to go to the next, just report on the map slides. So this property is located directly on the southeast corner of 25th East and Iona Road. As you know, and just to touch on some of the points, ITV is currently putting together a plan to work on the roundabout there and change it to a signal. line out the signal up on the highway, so they've kind of taken over, headed that up, and done a traffic study and traffic counts on that and figure out what they think is going to be most appropriate for that area. Before ITD started that project and started working on that, this was already zoned R1 and R3. With the proposed development, they're not increasing the density as to what that R1 and R3 zone would allow. And then just to speak a little bit to Gordon Egan's concerns. So planning staff, when we do notices, we always have to notice Idaho Transportation Department of anything new that's happening. So they received the notice for this application and they did not give us any comments about any concern about increased traffic or anything like that. To clarify a little bit about the road and bridge comments. So I think the confusion came from on the actual comments themselves. It said May 18th, but it was May 18th of 2023. So they were from 2023 and I verified that with Lance. And then as far as the concern about continuing to be served from water, we talked about it in the P&Z hearing and it still stands. Obviously the state statute requires these property owners to still carry the water to the adjacent property owners regardless. That's something that has to happen. It's controlled by the state. They take care of that. So that would really be kind of all I have to briefly go over the appeal items, and I stand for any questions if there's any from the board.
I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about the ITD traffic assessment. Was there one done then? Did the planning and zoning consider a traffic assessment?
So we didn't do a traffic assessment as part
But
of
did
the
ITD provide one?
Not for this specific hearing, but I know as part of the project to do the new street lights and stuff, they did a traffic assessment of the traffic flows.
And we know that included the question was asked if it included the new subdivision.
And I don't know that for sure.
I don't believe we did, but I don't believe we did because there was no discussion about that subdivision moving forward. Relative to the intersection. That doesn't mean it did. There's part of the discussion.
All right, now we'll turn some time over to the applicant or representative. Please state your name and
Can Chris go first? He lives in one of the
That's
suburbs.
great.
I'm Chris Long. I'm a resident of Crow Creek Estates Division. Thanks for letting security at the other building know what was happening. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to join you.
That's their job. It's their job, so we're glad you're here.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I wasn't in favor at the May meeting, but I thanks for hearing me, commissioners, today. I speak for myself, my family, and a lot of the residents of Crow Creek. We're concerned about the traffic as well. That the study doesn't take into account the tremendous volume of housing that's going to go in here and how that's going to affect traffic patterns. Also, there has been a very large impact there on the map on Larson Drive and Sandy Drive for people cutting across our development in Crow Creek as well as Summit Hills, which connects over to Ammon Drive. The cut across, I guess, if you will, is going to really drive up traffic for us, and I'm supportive of what Mr. Gordon Egan has to say, and his points about the traffic study. Anything you want to ask me?
Sure, I'd like to ask a question. Is that cut across traffic and radically increased relative to the utility work and the temporary traffic light stuff that the utility companies got set up at Iona Hammond Road intersection?
No,
I've never thought about driving through the neighborhood.
Well, you
Now I
know,
will think.
Waze Google Maps is a glorious thing, and what I'm saying is you know, Iona Road is already so congested, especially with the traffic signs over by the high school and the traffic circle, and it's just a huge thoroughfare there at 25th and Iona for folks coming in from Wyoming and the county. That in order to get over to Ammon and areas south, folks will come over to Pinnacle Drive there and take one of the cross routes across through our neighborhood. So we have a lot of people passing through that are not residents of these subdivisions, but are just cutting over to Ammon to cut one more traffic lane out of their path. Does that make sense? And so I'd ask the commissioners to, in reconsidering Gordon's traffic considerations for Hit Road and Iona Road, the traffic circle, I'd ask you to reconsider the impact on our neighborhoods.
Well, a couple things. One, Ryan, Gordon Egan, 3031 North 25th East.
Wait, one more thing, Gordon, I forgot one thought. And, you know, I know you have to consider what's in front of you, but if those could be made single-family homes instead of apartments, I think that would go a long way as well. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So Gordon Egan, 3031 North 25th East, Saddle Falls, Idaho. And thanks, guys, for meeting with us today. And before I get into any of the tall grass, I always hate people that come in and create a problem that don't have a solution. And so I have two solutions to my appeal, and one is to go ahead and approve it, start now with single family homes, as he has stated, because the increase of having apartments there is going to tremendously increase the amount of vehicles that are going to be coming and going, as well as what he stated in the increased traffic. I've been surprised, and once they paved that road at Larson Drive, there's a very heavy stream of traffic coming and going there, which is impacting
That's an express bypass lane around my street down to the south to get onto Larson there at the bottom of the screen.
It's hard for the recording to keep people separate, so we need to
Oh,
just
sorry.
have one person
sorry.
speaking.
Okay.
I beg your pardon.
So, but anyway, to go with the traffic studies, I was able to print off both of them that Michelle pointed me to, and they do not have anything to state about this subdivision that's going in, nor the one down at Costco. Now, is the one in Costco, is that in the city of Ammon? They get annexed. Do you know how many units they're going to put into that? I thought I read in the paper like 800. Don't quote me on that.
And that's, I mean, for the purposes of this hearing, it's really not relevant because we can't consider it as part of the decision because we're focused specifically on this piece of property and the impacts that it will have.
But I think it is relevant because those vehicles are going to travel down 25th.
Right, but that's something that would have to be addressed by that developer at the time that they develop the property. That's not the responsibility of this developer.
But Bonneville County doesn't oversee that.
And the roads will be annexed in the city of Ammon, so that will be the city of Ammon responsibility.
Okay. But with that being said, depending on the amount of homes that are built there, you got between 600 and 1,200 vehicles which are going to be in this new subdivision. And it doesn't state anything in these traffic studies. They do use the phrase, as time goes on, by 2045 there will be an increase, whatever, but it doesn't state now. And back to when we had the hearing in May, Commissioner Beck, as you read, said that, we have to just go by what the studies are handed to us. We have no right to question what they have in here. But my point is, they're not inputting how many new vehicles are going to be put into that. And even though this study is very technical, and I only understand about a fourth of what I read in it, because I don't understand a lot of this stuff, but here's actually the study out of my window at 5:30 in the afternoon every day. It backs up clear past the railroad tracks. And so, to go along with that, I was in Tacoma Screw just last week, and I said, since the construction has started here in this intersection, what's it done to your business? And they said, it's probably cut it in half. They said, people just will not wait out here 5-10 minutes to get into our business to buy their nuts and bolts. They're going to go somewhere else. And that's my biggest fear. If this congestion continues on, it could have put me out of business. Well, my customers go, I'm not going to fight that traffic to get to that machine shop. And so the second item here that I would have as a solution, the first one is go ahead with single families. Or number two is to wait and not to approve this until Idaho Transportation Department can complete 26th and 25th and Iona and see what the traffic flows are then. If there are no backups, I have no problem. If it's gonna be like this all the time, I got some major heartburn.
From my understanding, and I agree, I think with Austin, it's hard to consider information that isn't relevant yet. I mean, it's hard for them to do a traffic count when that development is not there yet.
Well, and just for the record, and this was included, but we included the finding of fact from September 2020, the 30th, when this was rezoned to R1 and R3. This portion, and we did require in that they have a traffic study performed at the roundabout and on the arterial roads. And I think that was the developer's intent all along, but when the state came in and took over ownership of the roundabout and that northern piece, then that becomes the state's responsibility, not necessarily the developer's responsibility at that point, because that was a county requirement. Then those roads became owned by the Idaho Transportation Department, which then makes it a state-owned road and the county requirement. I mean, it gets a little fuzzy as to where that goes, but I think that the understanding from the Crow Creek developers is the state came to them and said, hey, this is what we need in order to perform our project here. This is the distances we need. This is the right of way we need. This is what the intersection needs to look like. So I think from their standpoint, they feel like they took care of what they needed to with the state taking over that project. Well, and that's where what I'm saying, it gets fuzzy, because where the roads changed ownership, then that traffic study would have needed to be a requirement of the state, not a requirement of the county, because we don't have the jurisdiction there anymore.
But Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, in that meeting that we had in May, the motion was made that these 8 items be met before you guys approve. And that is number 1A on this list, that traffic study needed to be done. So are you going to take that off this, out of that motion in which they voted on?
Well, and what I'm saying is the state's traffic study is that traffic study. Because the state took ownership of that road.
You're going to accept that?
I don't know that we have much of another choice.
Well,
because what I'm saying is the requirement for the traffic study now would have to come from the state.
Okay.
So if you were to go build on a state-owned road, we're gonna ask for comments from the state about what needs to be done to improve that road to make it acceptable for the traffic loads. So that's where that gets tricky.
And maybe I'm splitting hairs, but if that motion was made back in that meeting, that these 8 items, and there's actually 9 items, had to be met in order for the approval, aren't you gonna have to do something to exclude that from that motion that they voted on?
Well, and I'm gonna hold this up here because we're kind of getting into a debate.
Okay.
This isn't a debate, it's a
Oh.
hearing. Where we need to hear the facts.
Okay.
And on both sides.
Okay.
And then make a decision on it. So, I appreciate the discussion and I've allowed some latitude, but we do need to stay with just the information so that then we can consider it. I mean, we can't make a decision
I understand.
here,
I
which is what you're asking.
Okay. And so, Commissioner Reed, can you maybe explain to me the process of what will be made in this decision? I'm unfamiliar. I don't know if you can override this, if you can approve it. Can you explain how the process works?
So, yes, I mean, the commissioners have the final say on all plats on this. And so we're going to take all the information from the previous hearing. We're going to look specifically to see if the Planning and Zoning Commission erred in any way in their decision. If, and we'll determine then if there was no error, it would be upheld unless we've heard no more information that they haven't heard. If we do find a problem with it, then we'll either look for correction or we can overturn it. So we have the latitude to go either way.
And we should probably make those traffic studies that you have part of the record, so we can review those as part of our.
And it should
part of
be,
their decision
yeah,
process.
that needs to be part of this. If that wasn't considered in the previous one, we'd like to be considered.
Gwen Rondo, can I get copies of those?
They're pretty-
Do you mind,
they're pretty
and
small.
the pictures of, we'll make copies of it and I'll return them to you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle Hagan, so the Planning and Zoning Commission did not have copies of those traffic studies. They were not part of the
Right, we're
record.
not there. Okay,
They
so
were
that's
not
new
there.
information that we need to base our decisions on.
And Commissioner Reed, if you will, in the first thinner study, if, when they made the study, there's a line in there that says most of the traffic is commercial, industrial, and a few older homes. That's the only phrase in that first study that was stated. And so my big concern is they're not taking into consideration the increase with those words in there. So anyway, now that you guys have that, that would be a big help. That would be a big help.
So can I ask you a question? Why, where did this come from? Make sure I understand correctly.
Michelle.
And why did they not have it at planning and zoning meeting?
That,
And
Michelle.
if you can't answer it, I'll ask them when you're done.
Michelle was very helpful. She gave me the link to the Iowa Department of Transportation to make copies and to read it. So I would be up to speed for this meeting.
Okay, so I'll ask that question when you're completed. Is there anything else? Excuse me, go ahead.
If I could, the question, you might answer your questions, what's the date?
There is no date on it. I've looked.
Transportation.
But I do have the one from Lance back in July 13th of 2020. And one thing for the record, I would have to apologize. I didn't make it to the Zoom meeting back when COVID hit and it went from R1 to R3. I'm electronically challenged. So,
People
So-
could attend in person.
they could still cut up.
Yes.
But anyway, I missed that, or else I would have definitely expressed my views then. So anyway, that really covers it, Commissioner Reed. I think you covered some of the items here. But with this being now entered into the record for you guys to read and study, there's some of the other question I had in the first study was they did it in March. And if you recall, the winter was still in full effect in March, and so people were still kind of hunkered down. And when weather warms up, people get out and start moving around. But there was the numbers they had were, I think, pretty accurate. But it was March. It's a lot different in July than March.
Gwen Rondo, there's a statement here in number 3 of this exhibit number 2. This is exhibit number 1. It says ITD District 6 collected weekday turning movement counts at projected intersections on Wednesday, March 3rd and Thursday, March 4th, 2021. Based on these counts, the AM peak hours was found to be from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. and the PM peak hours was from 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. Weekend turning movement volumes were also collected at the project intersections on Friday, March 5th and Saturday, March 6th, 2021 to compare to weekday volumes. Based on these counts, the AM and PM peak hour volumes on Friday were similar to the weekday counts. These counts are found in Appendix A of this exhibit. So,
We will obviously need copies of that,
yes.
and we'll need to review that before we meet with you.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Just one question there, and maybe it's for Austin. If you guys found it that there was going to be more congestion, can you go back to the developer and have them change that, or is that on?
Austin, I don't know the answer to that.
It would depend on what section of road we're discussing. Because if we're discussing the intersection and anything north, which is what's majorly gonna congest the traffic or flow the traffic, that's all now maintained ownership by the state. So that becomes the state's jurisdiction of what they want improved and what they don't want improved. And just for the record, I'll state, when we were first working with these developers to do this plan and this area was still on the county jurisdiction, we were making them deed enough right away that we could make that a 2-lane roundabout, because that's the plan we were moving forward with, and we kind of put some things together with them. They were getting ready to move forward with that plan when the state came in and started this project, and then they held off this application for about a year and working back and forth with the state to try to decide what the best solution was and how much the state needed and where those roads needed to go. So they were very cooperative with the state, and that's why I have a hard time believing, even if the numbers aren't directly reflected in that study, the state had to have known what was coming there because they were in direct contact with the developer. So that's just what I'll leave for the record, is what my understanding of this whole process has been, and why it's been so delayed from 2020 is because the developer's been working with the state to meet what the state wanted and needed for this specific area.
So question, Austin, is the roundabout, where does that line from going from state to county? At the south end of the roundabout?
I'll have to look at the exact where it was deeded and where it comes from, but I would imagine the whole intersection and then north. But
Is there anything else?
Just one other testimony that I have to give you an idea of traffic right now. On June 22nd of this year, I was at Cherry Blast, which is just 200 yards to the south of my business, trying to turn left on the 25th, and I timed it, took 9 minutes before the traffic eased enough for me to make a left-hand turn out of Cherry Blast to go to Egange. So, and that, along with the picture, kind of, that's kind of a current real life, what's going on. And that's the other item we did have, Commissioner Reed. There was security discussed, and Chairman Beck said the sheriff's office has not said this is going to be anything, because my concern was that many apartments is vandalism or maybe graffiti or whatever in my business, as well as the ground I own across the railroad tracks. Doyle did ask Austin if he could buy paint to help cover up the graffiti.
Thank you. We're seeing no other members of the public. Already had your, oh, there is a member of the public online now, I'm sorry. Alex and Isabel, we will open the meeting up to some public testimony. Is there anything you would like to add related to the appeal? You're muted if you're trying to speak. All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. We will take all of this information. We will individually confer with our planning and zoning staff so that they can get our thoughts. We can learn a little more to help with our decision. We will not discuss it amongst ourselves. We will enter our own information to planning and zoning independently. They will put it together then in a finding of facts with hopefully a consensus of how we both feel, and then we will vote on it, what decision they bring before us. This may take 2 or 3 weeks, because I need a little bit of time in order to review through this before they're even going to be able to start on it. So I would give it at least 2 weeks, and the decision will be posted. The meeting to make the decision will be posted on our calendar, typically on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. We always do these during our road bridge meeting right here.
Is there a website for you guys, or your calendar, commissioner's calendar?
And you can do it by Zoom, or you can attend by Zoom. All of those are on Zoom. It'll be on the commissioner's calendar. You won't be notified. You won't be notified any other way. Okay. So you'll have to watch that.
Are we still recording?
We are. Gordon Rondo, there is Alex and Isabel. Yeah, they put in the chat, I'd just like council members to please consider the schools. There are 3 schools feeding into this intersection, and that traffic should be considered too. That is the comment from Alex and Isabel on Zoom in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. We will We will accept that as testimony at the meeting and it will be part of our decision.
I'd just like to be on the record to say I appreciate all of you guys' service. I know it's a tough industry to work in because there's always two parties that want different things, and for you guys to do what you do, we're very appreciative. And I'm not anti-development, we just want to make sure it's the best for everybody. And so I'm sure you guys will make a good decision.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Gord.
that very much. We'll go ahead and close the hearing. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks for
Thank you.
hearing us, taking the time. You guys have a good day.
We'll go ahead and stop recording.